Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of We'll Do It Live, the morning of, what is it, the 11th of August. But more importantly, in terms of the date, is the date after the first Bernie Sanders rally that I ever went to, which was pretty cool. I got to go with a couple of different members of TYT. Jimmy Dore was there, the executive producer, Arena. Tim is one of our graphics people, and we were able to interview people and stuff like that. It was pretty awesome. So I'm going to be talking about that a little bit, but of course this is primarily... I think it's lined up. This is primarily news-based. This is basically like an informal, collaborative thing where we look at the news. I give my sort of first reaction to it as I sort of work through what's going on in the morning. And especially today, where I'm going to be on the Young Turk show, it helps me to figure out some of the beginnings of topics that we want to talk about on the show should be. And of course, if you're in the chat, you can participate by sending me links or suggesting stories, something to Google. If I'm on a story and you know a particular fact about it, I would love to be enlightened. So you can comment there and let me know about it. And by the way, if you want to go to Bernie rallies, he is going all over the country. He's speaking basically every day in at least one city. So he's going to be all over. And if you are in the LA area, the next time he comes back, I will probably go again. So maybe we can meet up. I was actually lucky enough to meet a lot of TYT fans at the one yesterday. Okay, let's see. I've got it started up on the New York Times to begin with. I see right off the bat, I love that there's almost no company that is provoking more private opposition and in a lot of places government opposition than Uber. And I would not have guessed that when it originally came out. I see this about China devaluing its currency. I think it devalued it by about 2%, I think. And we were doing, Anna and I on the main show a couple of weeks ago, we talked about how their stock market has, I think it had lost at this point like 30% since just a couple of months ago. So they're obviously having some problems. It could just be growing pains, though. It's not a particular area of expertise of mine. I'm probably not going to Drudge Report anytime soon. The Uber hate seems to be generated by the fact that you've had the traditional sort of setup of these taxi companies for decades and decades in major cities. Not, as far as I can tell, not a lot of competition. There's usually a couple of companies, and they make a lot of money. And now Uber comes in and it interrupts basically everything, the entire system, in the way that you would expect that it would. I mean, you're crowdsourcing. It's not sort of streamlined through one organizational structure. And I don't know that they will always be able to offer cheaper rides, but I've taken taxis in LA and I've taken Ubers in LA, and it's not even close in terms of how expensive it is. And honestly, in terms of the user experience, like I've been in some taxis where I've had a lovely conversation with the driver, but I think in general, the people who do Uber tend to be, maybe because it isn't their career and maybe they do it for a few weeks or a few months or a year at most, I think they tend to be fresher and happier and all of that. Fresher, I mean like in terms of their perspective, not necessarily in terms of their hygiene or actual freshness. Yeah, no, and Nriab23 is bringing up, yeah, if you don't know, like with Uber, where you pay a set amount based on the distance they're traveling, it is in their interest to go the most direct route as fast as possible. But in a taxi where you're paying based on how long you're in the taxi, it's in their interest to lie to you and to take roundabout routes and to go slow. And so why would a consumer want that? Why would they want to have the driver be incentivized to inconvenience them, whereas Uber does the exact opposite? And still apparently is able to generate money for its drivers, although not necessarily as much as they imply early on. Eric Wallace, I have not seen that. Let me Google that really fast. So Martin O'Malley, DNC debate. Apparently he's not happy with the way that they're setting it up. Okay, so I'm seeing something from a few days ago on CNN. Let's see. Oh, what do you know? They're actually going to have 6 debates on the Democratic side. I'm surprised that Hillary agreed to that. Let's see. The schedule they propose does not give voters nationally, especially in early states, ample opportunity to hear from the Democratic candidates for president. The DNC announced that the 5 Democrats running for president would debate a total of 6 times. The first will be October 13th. Oh, okay. So this is where I think his problem lies. Only 2 debates announced by the Democratic body would fall after the Iowa caucus and New Hampshire primary. Yeah. Look, this is personally very How's it going, everybody? This is personally very frustrating to me because especially considering that maybe without Bernie Sanders, I wouldn't have this view, but considering the fact that I think we could actually have an awesome series of debates between, and in my mind, Bernie Sanders and the other candidates, I want them as early and as often as possible. And for people like, well, in this case, Hillary Clinton, that's not in her interest. I mean, she wants to coast by on name recognition, people's attachment to her past policies, and the fact that she's going to have a ton of money. She has very little to gain from the debates. That's the conventional wisdom. I would say if she actually has better policies than Bernie Sanders, then she has tons to gain by debating him. Just defeat him in the primaries, and then you're good to go. You're probably going to become the president. But she doesn't want to take that risk. And understand that from her point of view, this is coming after she ran against, in the last primary, or 2 primaries ago, I guess I should say, against Barack Obama. It probably has shades of that in her mind. And so I think that she's a little bit too scared to give the proper number of debates. Now, obviously, O'Malley has good ideas too, and he's a lib guy. I mean, they're all libs, obviously, and I would like to see his performance as well. I wish that we had one a lot earlier than October 13th. We're going to have had multiple Republican debates by then, and this is, not to mention this is bad for Bernie's chances and all that. This is bad for the conversation nationally about politics, because the Democratic Party is giving up months of airtime where the conversation is going to be dominated by the Republican debates, and I think that is overall going to bite them in the ass. Okay, let's see what's going on around the world. Japan restarts reactor lifting 2-year ban prompted by Fukushima accident. Okay, so this is a different power plant. The first to return to service. I guess that's good. I mean, unless it's based off of the same antiquated design as the Fukushima reactor, it's probably fine to bring it back. I don't see that being a huge problem. Karamoth says, if Sanders were to win, it would surely make for a much less tense relationship with Canadians. That's probably true, yeah. You all need to look up the problem with Uber taxis in England. It's costing black cabbies their jobs. That's interesting. I wonder why that is. 905 says, John, if you could live in any country in the world other than the U.S., which one would you choose and why? Other than the U.S.? I mean, it would probably be a European. I mean, look, I would love to see what it's like to live in Australia, but I know very little about Australia. I think that the UK would be interesting. There's in the European mainland, there's a number of countries that I think it would be very interesting to live in, but the language barrier could be a problem. I've taken multiple languages in the past. I've studied Mandarin, I studied Arabic for a couple of years, and it's not one of my strong suits. The reactor in Japan is the same old antiquated design. Well, then that's actually scary, and we should be careful. Okay, so O'Malley, I think, has a point there. It's cowardice to not want to start debating now. I mean, we've gotten rid of, as a country, we've gotten rid of the actual debates on the Senate floor, which I think were at one point one of the hallmarks of our democratic system. We've gotten rid of that. That doesn't happen anymore. At most, we have one-sided grandstanding, and we don't even get that much of that anymore. And so these are the debates we have. We need more of them. I think it's good for the country. It's good for Democrats. They need to get them started. I have heard of thorium nuclear. I'm not in any way an expert on it, though. And I would consider living in Canada. Sure, why not? Okay, let's mix it up. Let's see. Let's once again jump to Reddit early on. This is an aggregator of a number of different political sites. Although I do think they have a fairly extensive banned list on /r/politics, which is disappointing. Only Freethinkers has a good point. Mandarin and Arabic are difficult languages. Maybe I should have tried some other ones. Oh, look at this. So, Sanders pulls crowd of 27,500 in LA. And thankfully, as I was saying earlier on, I was lucky enough to be one of those 27,500 going to this Bernie Sanders rally yesterday. So I think they could fit about 20,000 in the actual stadium. And it did seem full. Apparently, they had to stop literally thousands and thousands of people from even going in. And after he gave his speech, which was about, I would say, 45 minutes long or so, he then went outside and addressed the huge overflow crowd, which was pretty awesome. And so, for me, I don't go to a lot of political events, really. Like, I'd been to a Hillary speech during the primary back when I was at UT, a number of years ago. And so it was pretty awesome, I have to say, being surrounded by so many people that were generally quite young. It was a diverse crowd, obviously very progressive, very passionate. And I'm used to listening to like the GOP debates where the applause lines tend to be like mocking women and executing people. And so to be in a crowd that does applaud for equal pay, or maybe let's not get into a war with Iran, or how about we not deport, the parents of like a 6-month-old or something like that, that was an awesome experience. And it certainly didn't hurt that I was able to meet a lot of fans as well. Jimmy Dore was incredibly popular with that crowd. And so Bernie Sanders, I was impressed with the speech that he gave. He's not the greatest public speaker, but I do think he is better than average in the Democratic Party. He was forceful. He said the right things, and also he said a lot of specific things. Coming out of that speech, there are so many. Look, you could get more specific, but he gave very specific ideas of what he wants to do in terms of the economy, social issues, international politics, a number of different topics. And that is not what you're hearing in the speeches or rallies or a number of other politicians, where at best they give sort of vague references to the Constitution or to the Bible or whatever. And we've heard those a million times before. And so it was refreshing to hear some actual specifics. And so Eric Wallace is asking, are we going to incorporate the interviews we did into the main show today? Or are they going to be separate videos? I do think it's going to become a video, and I do think that we're going to use it on the main show, but possibly not today. It's going to take a good amount of time to go through all of the footage and produce something out of it. But we did interview a number of Bernie Sanders supporters, or people who were there, which are probably like 99% supporters, and asked them what it is about Sanders that has them fired up. I asked a couple of different people, what policy positions that he's not currently open about, or that he hasn't talked about much, could he have that would cause you to not support Bernie Sanders? And people hadn't really thought about that much in the past. So I don't know. I don't know for sure. Actually, I saw that female reporter. I saw her there. I don't know for sure that it was 27,000. Oh, I ran into Jacob Soboroff as well. They always overestimate, but I would not be surprised if that was true. Sarah Silverman was there. I'm a big fan of that. That was pretty cool. And so, looking around a crowd of 27,000 people, like 27,000 is not, the millions of votes you need to win a primary. But looking around, it was difficult to buy the idea that, we should say that Trump has a real chance, but Bernie Sanders, he can't win. I think that is becoming more and more ridiculous with every passing day. Marco Antonio is asking, were Black Lives Matters there at the rally? I don't know. I mean, certainly there was discussion of it. His new press secretary, I'm not sure if she's technically his press secretary, but she was talking about the movement, but I don't think that she's a member of the movement, and it certainly wasn't interrupted or anything like that. Eric Wallace is asking, speaking of policy positions, did he address minority issues? Yeah, definitely. I mean, he talked about police brutality. He talked about his platform on police reform. Economic issues, obviously, incredibly, that's important to every population, obviously. Let's see. Yeah, so Digital Bookworm brings up that Sanders now has the backing of the National Nurses Union, which, by the way, this is pretty early to be for any of those unions to be backing people, but they did. And they actually had a representative of that nurses union speaking about why they support him. Let's see. At the Medicare anniversary week. Was that the same? Are you talking about the Seattle thing? Only free thinkers? I'm not sure if that's what you mean. Garden Gnome, I don't know. I mean, the polls are getting closer and closer. I mean, at one point, I would like to go back and see the gap in the polls between Obama and Hillary, for instance. I don't find it impossible to imagine that there was this large of a gap at some point between them. Mr. Wazop, no, I've never heard of that person. Hey, Greg Stevens, how's it going? Marnix, I do often bring up international stories. I think one of the reasons we don't do as much international news, and I do want us to, is that, I'm mainly speaking for myself. I don't see my role on TYT as being like a reporter who says, this is happening. It's more, we think our value is in the context we can give to it, the thinking that we've done, like the extra stuff we can add around it. And for the international issues, where, especially if it's specific to one country, where we don't have the depth of experience and knowledge as we do with the United States, there is less that we can offer. And so it becomes less appealing because we don't think we have as much to add on. That's not the case all the time, obviously. Okay, let me mix it up. Let me go to Media Matters. See if they have anything non-Trumpian. Media Matters, great site, obviously. Glad CEO explains why Fox shouldn't panic about gender-neutral toys. So Fox and Friends was talking about this. It was either yesterday or the day before about Target is going to be getting rid of gendered advertising or like labeling for toys. Like they're not going to have like this is the girls section, this is the boys section. And Fox and Friends lost their mind. Let's see how long this is. 4 minutes. We'll see. We might end up talking about that on the show today. It's interesting. People have this like knee-jerk opposition to getting rid of some of these like gender signals or gender signs, the way that we sort of like force people into these very narrow corridors in terms of something as silly as toys. Like one of the people on Fox and Friends was saying, you know, like, how am I going to know when I go into a store if my kid will like this toy? Here's an idea. Pay attention to your kid and see what toys they tend to like. And the idea that he would go in and he would, like, if he wanted to continue with the normal sort of gendered toy breakdowns that we already have, you don't already know those. Like if you go in and you look at a Barbie, you don't know who society has said should play with that up until this point. What an idiot. Roger Ailes looks like he's melting. Frost Pegasus says, yeah, Ted Cruz looks like he is melting. Let's see. Okay. New CNN hire claims that the KKK and Nazis are liberals. Okay, let's see this. CNN has hired Jeffrey Lord as a political commentator. Lord has a history of pushing fringe rhetoric and misinformation. Let's see, it's official and now a commentator at CNN according to his tweet. Okay, so that's a couple of days ago, but it seems like it is true. Denies lynching. Trump was exactly right about the anti-Mexican immigrant remarks. Okay, that's great. He fell for a fake Seth Rogen Twitter account. That's funny. I don't really blame him necessarily. Hold on really fast. So thank you, Nick Eckhart. Yeah, we might do it again. And I do sometimes stream Rocket League as well. So Cybersnake asks, this is an interesting question. Cybersnake asks, how do you know what stories to cover at TYT? So that is obviously an incredibly complicated thing. It matters. There's so many different variables that matter. So it matters who is doing the choosing. So if it's Jank, for instance, in the first hour, Jank chooses a ton of stories that he's interested in. JR chooses a bunch. I choose a couple, and Hannah Cranston chooses a couple. And we mash them all together. And we obviously, if we think certain stories are simply the most important news of the day, and we want to cover those. There's some that are personally interesting to us, campaign finance issues, voter ID and voter rights, for me, for instance, and we will tend to push for those. If we think that there's something that we haven't been covering enough of recently, we're more likely to put it on the rundown, obviously. If there's something that we're doing a bunch of, it's going to be a little bit less likely. Like, I know we cover a lot of Trump, we cover too much Trump probably, but we're never going to do like 15 Trump stories. Like, we do eventually cull things, and we try to get a mix of, to some extent, serious and less serious stories. We don't want the entire first hour, for instance, to be like sort of inside baseball, horse race politics. We don't want it to just be super serious tragedy politics. We try to get a good mix. 9earth5 says, who's your favorite comedian between George Carlin, Dave Chappelle, Jerry Seinfeld, and Bill Maher? As a comedian, I'm not actually much of a fan of Bill Maher. Jerry Seinfeld, I like his show. I don't like his stand-up all that much. I've enjoyed Dave Chappelle's stand-up more, probably, and I've seen both George Carlin and Dave Chappelle in person in the past. I love George Carlin. I love his message. I think Dave Chappelle is funnier. Like, the political message of George Carlin is awesome and timeless and valuable, but I don't find him as funny as Dave Chappelle. Let's see. TYT, the more serious version of the Jon Stewart Show. I don't know that that's necessarily... Hey, Jeffrey, I'm doing well. I don't know if that's actually... Are we more serious? And the Daily Show can get super serious. And we can get pretty wacky too. I mean, they're very different shows. Okay, let's see. This guy Jeffrey Lord. I mean, once he starts actually saying crazy things on CNN, then we'll cover it. Oh, those of you who are here for episode 2 of We'll Do It Live, I was doing some. I was looking at some research into the past history of John Kasich and some of the less moderate things that he's done as a governor. I'm gonna try to put together like 10 interesting facts about his past as a governor, and I'm going to try to do that on the show today. Because John Kasich is someone that I think is getting a good amount of press coming out of the debate, but I don't think many people know that much about him. Okay, let's jump to... You know what? Let's see Raw Story. Site Anna Kasparian blogs on. Let's see how it's going. Thank you, only free thinkers. Wrathful Internet teaches CrossFitter that Berlin Holocaust Museum isn't his gym. He posted himself doing a handstand on a memorial to the victims of the Holocaust. What the... Hello, Berlin. 15-hour layover, checking the sites, drinking the beers, eating the bratwurst. Okay, it's obviously important. Did he know that that's what it was? Okay, he says we walked near this memorial not knowing what it was at the time. People were walking on the pillars, kids running around, people sitting on them. It was gorgeous and looked visually stunning. Okay, so here's an important question. For those of you who either live in Berlin or are familiar with this Holocaust memorial, two questions. Is it immediately obvious when you go there what it is? And 2, do other people walk on and sit on the pillars? Because if they do, then I would give them a pass. I mean, if that's actually going on. I can see a lot of pillars in that picture, and I don't see anyone walking on them, though. Jake Tapper is going to moderate the next GOP debate, according to Christina Oakes. That's interesting. I mean, it's not going to make for an interesting debate, necessarily, but it's interesting that they're doing it. Let's see. Is this one of Anna's articles? No, it is not. I don't think she did one yesterday. Hey, Sean, how's it going? Morning, Christina. Have you thought about visiting India? This is Engad Bakar. I mean, it's certainly on the list. It's obviously an incredibly interesting country. I worked. This is gonna make me sound like an idiot, by the way. So in Austin, I worked for about 3 years in an Indian restaurant, like a nice Indian restaurant, and I became so addicted to Indian food working there. And thankfully, this was an Indian restaurant that tried to do sort of a sampling of the different regional cuisines from different parts of India, because obviously there's incredible diversity between like South coastal India and like the Kashmir region and stuff like that. I would love to go there just to try the food, and obviously to see the sights and the gigantic cities and all that'd be pretty cool. Oh, this is a good question. So Mr. What's Up 987 says, how extensively do you check the methodology of studies? So I like to think personally, people can disagree, I think that one of the things that I try to bring to the show is the fact that because I was in, as you know from Jimmy Dore, I was in graduate school for 5 years. I finished all of the comprehensive exams and everything. I am trained in both conducting the methodology of a rigorous study, but also analyzing it. There was a lot of analyzing it. And so I think that I am certainly capable of it. How much do I? I think that is commensurate with how hard to believe the results of the study are. If we're reporting on something, like for instance, if it's a poll done by, NBC News or something, I'm going to probably assume that they know how to get a nationally representative sample. If it's a scientific study and the results were kind of obvious to begin with, I will look it over, but I'm probably not going to kill myself or beat my ass looking at the original study or something. But if it challenges what I already believed, or if it's a little bit hard to believe, to whatever extent I can, I do try to track down the original study and I read the original study. I do that quite frequently, not necessarily just to check the methods, but very often articles summarizing scientific research, they don't just get the methods wrong, they get the results wrong a lot. And I want the actual researcher's view of what they have discovered. And also you can uncover if the methods were bad as well. Hello, Obmotor. How much time do you, Rose Go Lightly says, how much time do you spend doing Warhammer? Do you play Magic TG as well? I played Warhammer 40k back in undergrad. I haven't played it since then. So I stopped back in about 2006. It would be great if I could play again, but it seems unlikely time-wise and storage-wise that I could do that. And I used to play Magic back in the day, but not recently. So Garden Gnome says, some of the studies we've covered on Think Tank have had poor sample sizes and other flaws. So here's the thing. And you're obviously, you're 100% right. So there's a lot of different ways that the methods of a study can be set up poorly or incorrectly, but it's one thing if you don't necessarily know that you can take the results of it and you can generalize to the overall population. And it's another thing if it's designed in a way that you can tell as someone who does this that it's giving you the exact opposite result that you should. But simply something being conducted on a college campus and having 80 people, that doesn't mean that it doesn't have any value. It means that if it shows you something interesting, it demands further research, replication of the results and all that. But not every study right out the gate can have 1,000 people or 2,000 people over the course of 10 years, these huge longitudinal studies. You get to that by doing the little ones along the way. And so something having a small sample size, that doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means don't organize your entire political ideology around it just yet. That's what I would say. And again, it depends how sort of reasonable it is. If it already made sense, then I'm not going to necessarily care that it only has 80 people. But if it's trying to like overthrow all of what we think we know about politics or society or history or something like that, then I'm probably gonna care more. Okay, let's see. Why isn't Dave Kohler doing post games more often? I think he does like the Friday post game with Malcolm and Steve a lot. I don't know. You should tweet him and say, I want you to see you do more post games. He would probably really like that. Okay, shit, I haven't got nearly enough stories. Let's go to Think Progress. I've only got like less than 10 minutes, and I want to find a couple of good stories. Oh, one thing I want to talk about. Oh, I was gonna say the real unemployment rate. Bernie Sanders was talking about some of the stats at the rally yesterday. I want to go over that. Let's see. Okay, you know what? We're gonna come back to this white militiaman. I'm gonna open up Breitbart just to see what Breitbart is talking about. Not that I'm. Oh, Vox 2. That, yeah, Eric Walsh brings up a good point. Ringleader and murder of Border Patrol agent Brian Terry gets away with slap on wrist. Who is this guy? I'm not familiar with this. A member of an elite tactical crew in a fierce firefight with a RIP crew of gunmen who had been trying to rob Mexican drug traffickers. Of course, the weapons were from Fast and Furious, one of the most misinterpreted federal operations of the past decade. Okay, I'll look over this. I don't know right off the bat what point they're trying to make. Something, Obama's responsible for the death of a federal agent. I imagine that's probably what it is. Under the spotlight, that isn't at all what I mean. What I mean is there are some things that, when I say if it's common sense, I don't mean it's common sense because, like, the Woods wife told me it was common sense. I mean it was common sense because it fits in with prior research. Yeah, I don't just mean, like, that's the way my mama taught me, so it's common sense. I mean, it fits in with prior research and reading and study that I have done. That's what I try to do. Okay, fuck Breitbart. Maybe we'll go back every once in a while to laugh, but let's go to Vox. They do generally good work. I was here a little bit earlier today, so they have an analysis of the Seattle confrontation between Bernie and Black Lives Matters. I don't agree with their interpretation here. They're very deferential to the movement, which, look, it's complicated. They're not 100% wrong, but I disagree with them here. Oh, getting some text. There's a little bit of this that's not on the level Obama on Iran deal opponents. That's obviously true. Let's see. Cops in Ferguson hit a photojournalist with pepper spray, then something amazing happened. Am I an Upworthy? What happened? Let's see. Who came to my aid? I flood panties. Who the hell is that? Missouri citizen. So this dude helped the journalist out. Oh, okay. So that's interesting. So the photographer took a picture of that protester was later helped by that protester when they were attacked. That's sort of interesting. Christina Oak says, I prefer Vox over Fox. I agree. I think it's better too. Let's see. I don't know that they're sucking. I think that they make mistakes like everyone does. Megyn Kelly responds to Donald Trump's trolling. No, not interested. Oh, Lawrence. Oh, this is really interesting. Let's talk about this for just a minute. I do not live in Japan. The background does look Japanese, though. Okay, so Lawrence Lessig, who is someone who obviously Cenk Uygur has a lot of respect for and has previously talked with quite a bit, says that he might, if he can, it's something about like raising $1 million, he will run in the Democratic presidential primary, but he's not going to run in the usual sense. He's going to run as a referendum candidate, where basically he says that he would do campaign finance reform, and then he would resign as president, which is an extremely interesting idea. So he wants to set up, let's see, a voucher system that people can use for donations politically. He wants to create multi-member congressional districts, which is really interesting. Make Election Day a national holiday, which Bernie Sanders also proposed a bill today to do that. Makes voter registration automatic, another thing that Bernie Sanders mentioned at the rally yesterday. And restoring the Voting Rights Act after it was gutted 2 years ago, which is another thing that Bernie Sanders said. There's no reason that he can't run and simply resign. Why not? It would be weird, but he can do it. I haven't seen that Chris Farley. So I think this is an extremely interesting idea. I think Bernie Sanders would probably accomplish a great deal of what Lawrence Lessig is talking about doing if he were to run as this referendum type candidate. But I'm going to try to talk about this on the main show today. Not just because of the Lawrence Lessig thing, but also because I want to talk a little bit about the multi-member congressional districts, proportional representation, stuff like that. Because I think that, obviously a lot of you around the world know all about that stuff, but I think a lot of Americans do not. And so I think it's worthwhile to explain a little bit of it. Let's see. We are down to just a couple of minutes. So I've seen a number of these different pictures of white militia members walking around wearing like tactical gear and holding rifles in Ferguson. This is one of the stupidest ideas that I've heard. Open carry is open carry. I can do it. I've got my rights. They're trying to start a fucking confrontation. It is insanity. People are getting shot by cops running away from traffic tickets. But these guys are walking around in a tense situation in which shots have already been fired with rifles. And we're just supposed to say, oh, there's nothing racist about it. We're talking about this today as well. Look, here's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to play devil's advocate. I'm going to see if I can find interviews of some of them, and I might even reach out to the Oathkeepers for a statement. I want to know what their best, most in-depth explanation for why they feel the need to do this is. And they're not there to provide a check on the overreach of the police. They're looking to shoot people in Ferguson. It is fucking disgusting. Okay. Would I vote for Elizabeth Warren if she was running for president? Based on the policies of hers that I know, probably. But there's a lot of stuff that I don't know about Elizabeth Warren. I assume, probably. What did I think of Sarah Silverman showing up? I thought she was very funny. She made a reference to how she's never been in favor of the Koch brothers. She was like, wait, is it Koch brothers or Koch brothers? Maybe it's like Bernstein and Bernstein. It can go either way. That was pretty funny. Hillary or Biden? I think that Hillary would beat Biden in a primary, but Biden generally I don't like him on every issue. Okay, so look, the white militia member stories, we're going to be doing that. I'm going to try to do the detailed history of John Kasich to give people an idea of what he would actually be like as president. Lawrence Lessig's referendum presidency for campaign finance reform, we're going to talk about that. We're probably going to talk about the Bernie Sanders rally as well. Let's see. I've already talked about what would happen if Trump ran as a third-party candidate, so I'm probably not going to talk about that again. I did a final judgment a couple of weeks ago about that. Wendell, how's it going? Hello to the Philippines. Let's see. So that's, unfortunately, I wish we had a little bit more time, but I got to run to do Think Tank. Let me see if there's one or two more quick questions I can answer from you guys. Warren and Sanders both on wrong side with Palestinian issue. That's interesting. Sanders, I mean, look, he's still in favor of the Iran deal, which I see as somewhat of a litmus test, not necessarily in Palestine specifically, but on our relations with Israel. He seems to be on the right in that. Eric Wallace asked, am I co-hosting the first hour or going solo? I'm co-hosting. We haven't done a lot of solo in quite a while. I don't know when we're going to be bringing that back, but we generally are doing panels. I think because people want to see, like, especially when Jank isn't here, people want to see some of these, the commentators and the guests that don't come in all that often, and if we do a lot of solo shows, then we can't get that rotation going. Hey, Nitra, how's it going? Okay, so I'm sorry. I wish that I could talk more. Maybe we can do one tomorrow morning, especially because I don't. No, I'm still going to have to do a think tank in the morning, but maybe we can do a short show. So thank you for joining me for episode 3 of We'll Do It Live. I got to get a soundboard sample of Bill O'Reilly saying that so I can play it. Anyway, I'm really excited to do the show today. Jimmy Dore is going to be there. We're going to be talking about Ferguson. You know it's going to be fun, so be there. It's a little bit later on today. Anna will be there as well. Jank is going to be back tomorrow. Thank you for commenting. I didn't play any ads. I should probably play now. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you in the next episode.